recording.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to this rescheduled regular meeting of the Pipestone County Commissioners. It is January 2nd at 9 o'clock. If you'd please all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Serving us today, we've got County Commissioner Luke Johnson, County Commissioner Chris Hollingsworth, myself, Dan Wildermuth, County Commissioner Bruce Koyman, and County Commissioner Les Nath. Also our County Administrator Steve Ewing. And is Kathy going to be joining us at all?
Yes, she's finishing up with a new employee.
Our HR Coordinator, Kathy Feste. You all received, these meetings are recorded and rebroadcasted on our website as well. You all received a copy of the agenda in your packet. Also, a copy of the agenda is posted online. You've had a chance to review through that. Are there any corrections or additions to that agenda?
Mr. Chairman, a couple additions and corrections. Item number 2, auditor's warrants, changed the date from 12/28 of 18 to 12/31 of 18. She held those up through the end of the year instead of trying to do it on the Friday.
All right. Very good.
And then also, that's already taken care of with Nick setting a road and bridge committee meeting, so we can handle that. And then please add at 9:45 a.m. Renee Shue, VSO officer, regarding gift card donations to veterans.
Okay.
And lastly, under other business, we're going to add the Southwest Health and Human Services 2019 office lease agreement and IT services contract. And that's action item for signatures. And a little information with that. And that is it, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. With those two corrections, anything else as far as our additions, any corrections?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the agenda with those additions.
Very good.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Okay. Then our consent agenda then for today consists of the approval of the minutes of December 26th meeting, also the auditor warrants then from December 31st. Is there any discussion or questions on those?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the auditor's warrants. Any further questions? All in favor, aye. And opposed, the same. Thank you. Passes unanimously. We have joining us today then our county engineer, Nick Bergman. Nick, you've got a report for us. Maintenance update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
First up for me today, I have an update for our projects. Top item on the first sheet there is our federal project from 2017. It's on County Road 2 and County Road 16. We are preparing to send out the finals for that, so we're nearing the end, so that's good. That'll finally be done. The next update I have is actually a new project on the list. I probably should have added it a couple of months ago, but I didn't think of it. It's for our courthouse parking lot reconstruction. We're working on finalizing the plans for that. So we'll be looking for a building and grounds committee meeting probably in the near future. Try to finalize that, and then we can start advertising for bids. Next update.
Mr. Chair, Nick, will your plans include sidewalk removal and all that too, or is that a separate part of the project? Or is that all inclusive in the?
We'll do the sidewalk around the parking lot too.
One kind of has to be done at the same time, I would think.
Right.
It's basically just the sidewalk on the west side, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, that, and then the north side, I see that's,
Yeah, where we connect to the steps and stuff.
yeah, that got some damage right on the north side, and then probably up to those doors with the elevator. Probably try to tie that all
You
together.
might pour some new concrete right up to the steps too.
Yeah,
I think that, especially if the steps can get fixed
Right.
before, that would be
right.
to get that all kind of cleaned up.
And I understand also that sidewalk you're talking about not going with the curb, but feathering that sidewalk down into the parking lot.
Well, they're gonna set a form and probably just a square edge with a cove corner.
Oh, so there will be an edge there yet, it won't be feathered.
Yeah, it'll be a raised lip. It
Probably
just,
6 inches or something.
right, it just won't have the curved, you know, how you usually see
Slope
them.
to it, yeah.
One thing about pouring it in one chunk like that, you eliminate the separation deal. With the curb and then the sidewalk. Like we've got now.
Yes.
The next update I have is the third project down. It's our County State Aid Highway 13 widening and surfacing project. And we are just putting the finishing touches on the final plan, so we'll be back hopefully next month to try to set a letting date for that. So that's the last update I have. Next on the agenda for me is a request to approve some right-of-way payments. You see there's 5 listed there. That's for our County State Aid Highway 13 project. The top 5 on the list there. And then those bottom 2, that's for a culvert that was on our County State Aid Highway 7. But then when we redesignated roads a few years ago, we did some swapping. That's now on a county road. I'm not sure what Dave updated you on or what he told you before he left, so this might be just a repeat of info for you, but we're gonna get about $91,500 worth of bonding for that project, and then the balance is about $17,500, and we have to pick that up. That's not on a state aid road anymore, and his plans were to use the wheelage tax for that, so he'll be seeing. Well, that's how that'll be paid for, and he maybe told you that, I'm not sure, so I just thought I'd throw that out there again.
So that'll be the first time that we'll have used something out of there.
To my knowledge, yeah. I would say if anything else came out of there, it would have been small, but I don't remember hearing of anything else that came out of there, so. And we have it, it'd be used for it, so.
Do you need a motion to approve these payments?
Yes, I do.
Might move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Move and second to approve the payments in for the right-of-way easements. Do we need to list them off here, Steve?
No, Mr. Chairman, that's fine.
Because we got a list there. Okay,
Yep.
very good. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor of the right-of-way payments? Aye. None opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Next up, I have some maintenance updates for you, just kind of summarizing here. We plowed and sanded for 6 days in December. Obviously, the last week or so has been pretty busy for us. See, we left with the snow blower this morning, so we're using that today. We've done some sign repairs and some tree trimming, tree removal, just kind of basic maintenance stuff otherwise this month. Then Fountain Prairie Township had a problem with the road. It's 90th Avenue, just south of our County State Aid Highway 10. The flooding this summer washed out part of the bank right by the road, and it was about a vertical drop right off the edge of the road. We didn't feel it was safe for travel anymore, and we recommended they close it, so they had us do that. And I've been helping them work with FEMA to try to get some funds. It happened this summer, so try to get some funds associated with the flooding this summer to repair that. That's in the works now, but it's going on there.
What's your intended fix for that then?
I'm not really sure yet. It'd probably be best to try to move that channel away from the road if we can. It's possible we could put a curve in the road, try to move the road away from that. I guess I like roads to be straight, so if someone's not paying as much attention as they should be, they don't end up off the road, it's in the early stages. We'll see what they'll let us do. If we can't get a permission to move the stream, we might have to look at moving the road, well, I shouldn't say we, it's their road, but I'm helping them work with FEMA, so.
What road was that again, Nick?
90th Avenue, It's just south of our county state aid, Highway 10. It's like the quarter mile or so.
Do you know, did they apply for FEMA funds for the disaster last year?
I don't know. I asked the one person I was talking to, he wasn't sure if they did or not. So that leads me to believe they probably didn't. So I don't know if that ship has sailed, but I did speak with one of the reps, and he said there's some other things they might be able to do. So I got all that info to the township with the contact. Yeah, absolutely, with the phone call. So. So that's it for our maintenance updates. I'm requesting a road and bridge committee meeting. Sounds like we're gonna do that right after this one. There's a few things that I'll be bringing back to the full board later, but just to give you a little heads up, I'd like to talk about our intentions for County State Aid Highway 25. It's the road, it's 90th Avenue, not related to that township one, but it's between 23 and 30. It's the bypass for the sale barn or whatever you want to
South
call
of
it.
John Deere.
Yes, yep, right by John Deere, yep. Long story short on that one, that substation wants to replace their line, and they want to run straight north along that segment. We'd like to widen it, but they want to put it at their line at just outside of the 33-foot right-of-way. Well, we don't want it there if we're going to widen that road, so we would maybe have to come in a little early and buy right-of-way there, and then they could put it out farther. But there's no point in doing that if we don't plan on widening that road out. So I'll talk with the committee about that a little bit, and then bring it back to the full board later.
Which line are they talking about? The overhead transmission line or the underground distribution line?
It's an overhead. I'm not sure exactly what it's for. I believe it runs out to the west now and runs through the middle of a section somewhere, and they just want it up by a road so they can service it better. You know, they're replacing it. I understand this supplies Sioux Valley, I believe. It's the power coming in that Sioux Valley sells.
Yes,
how
it is.
I understand it. So,
Yep.
okay. So we'll talk some more about that, and I'll be back. I'll be back to talk to the full board a little bit more later. That committee meeting, I also have some dust control questions, and I'd like to establish a method for handling no parking zone requests too. So I'll talk to the committee about that, but just so you know, I'll be back to the full board later. So.
Some of that substation might also involve the generation transmission co-op, L&O out of Rock Rapids. They might be involved there too.
Oh, okay. The substation, I believe, is far enough back, but they want the line as close as they can to the road. So
Yeah, but
I thought it was worth the conversation, you know, so we don't have an issue later, so. Then, next note here, I'd like to pick a date, or see if you guys have a date in mind for the annual road and bridge hearing. That's the meeting we have at the highway department every year.
That's usually in February, right?
Yeah, usually we shoot for the end of February. I'd like to have it a week or so before the regular board meeting, so that way, you know, if we have some citizen requests or whatever, I can do a little research and bring that back to the full board at my next meeting, while it's still kind of fresh in everybody's mind. A couple dates I saw that I thought would work well would be February 25th or February 27th.
27th won't work for me, 25th will.
Okay.
Yeah, 25th would be better.
Okay.
Work for you, Luke?
That works for everybody?
Either or works for me.
Yep.
Okay. Just, Steve, is that something we can do with a motion now, setting that, or
Sure.
otherwise I can come back with the
Absolutely.
request?
You can do it right now.
Okay.
You make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to have the road and bridge meeting February 25th at Monday. What time?
I
9
think we
a.m.?
usually do it at 9 a.m. if that works for everybody.
At the highway shop.
Correct. Yep, at the highway shop, and we'll advertise it on the website, and however we did it before, I think we probably put it in the paper too. So we'll advertise in all the normal spots. So.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. And opposed, the same?
Next item I have, we talked a month or so ago about some crosswalks on our County State Aid Highway 9 in Edgerton. I have been in contact with the clerk down there for the city, and he was going to talk with the board or with the council and get back to me. So that's kind of where we're at, kind of waiting to hear back from them. So,
Do you have any input from the idea of having the stop sign along there?
yes, I
Is it
looked into
negative
that.
or is it positive?
It's negative. I looked into
yeah.
it.
Nobody wants to slow down, but they want, how are you gonna do it?
Right.
And I'm not dumping this on you, but I'm just saying, they like to complain over there, but when you bring up a solution that's very simple and cost-effective, they don't wanna do it.
Well, what I learned, I made a call to the state, and what I learned about that is, I was interested in that. I thought that'd get people to slow down for sure. But they said there's other people have tried that, and there's been research done, and pedestrians get a false sense of security because they assume everybody's going to stop, and not everybody stops. So it actually is more dangerous to do that. So,
Okay, well,
because hearing that, I'm against the idea of a stop sign, but it was worth looking into. It made sense. So I'll just wait to hear back from them, and then I'll bring it back to the board.
nothing slows people down like a squad car sitting there and a guy writing out tickets. That slows
I
them
think you're
down.
probably right.
Maybe that's what we need, a few days a week, just to sit there for an hour or two and
Yeah, it might be a good place to start.
understand when it affects their pocketbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can still do some, on the highway department side, we could
I'm
possibly,
guilty as anybody else driving through there. I go through there a lot, and those signs are 30 miles an hour, and people are going 40, 45.
sure.
And, I follow people into town all the time, and they're not, and I totally see the problem, and somebody's gonna get hurt by the school, especially when there's events going on, like a ball game or something at night. People park right along there, and they walk back and forth across the highway all the time. And, but yeah, there really isn't a good answer for that.
Right,
From out of town park there, they don't even know, the traffic there, but, so.
sure. Well, when I hear back from the city of Edgerton, we'll keep it rolling, so. I guess that's all I had. Anybody else have any questions for me?
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Okay, Tyler, are you ready as well, too? Tyler Reich will join us now. He's got a report on our forfeited property sale.
Good morning. All right. Hope everybody had a happy new year. Pretty much, because of the late agenda, I figured I'd give you a brief overview of what happened last year. Last year, I guess it was technically last year, at the auction last week. By far the best auction we've had. It was completely out of the blue. Did not expect it whatsoever. We had an entire room full of people. It was actually standing room only. It was very shocking to me. Usually forfeited auctions usually have at max 5 people if you're lucky. So it was really nice to see everybody. I think that's definitely played a role in getting the amount of money that we did. The total amount of money that we did receive for all the parcels combined was $43,206, which is obviously well over and above what we usually receive for these. We actually set 2 records since I've been here for the amount that we received for parcels. Both of them were down in Jasper. One was the Bauman Hall, and the other one was a house there that was actually in pretty good shape that I toured probably 10 times. So I knew that one was going to get a decent amount, but usually a decent amount is for $5,000, not $25,000. So it was definitely a great auction. Had a lot of good feedback from everybody. The only parcel that didn't sell, obviously, was the movie theater. Briefly give you an update on that. We're still waiting on CenterPoint to move the gas line. Once CenterPoint moves the gas line and we're able to get Double D in there to do the work, I'm planning on holding a separate auction for that because the original individual is still interested, and I actually was approached by an individual after the auction saying that they had expressed some interest in it as well. So I think we do have a buyer for that. That's why I would hold a separate auction to be able to get it sold and get it back on the tax rolls.
And for clarification, that wasn't even on the auction block this last time?
No, correct. No, I included it in the list just to give people some information on it. So yeah, we're strictly just waiting, kind of waiting pattern.
Contacting Centerpoint, or is Wayne Drew involved in that, or who's?
As of now, the entire agreement is between Centerpoint and the owner of individual who owns the building. Since I live by there, I'm kind of keeping an eye on it. It's still on our wall. Centerpoint has measured out. I don't know if they're waiting for spring. I have no idea. I would think I would think that they want to get it switched over, but I can try to put some pressure on it. I don't know if Centerpoint's waiting for.
Back of that theater taken
No,
down before
I-
you get a big snowfall on it.
Correct. I completely agree. Yeah. And I could give them a call and see if they're waiting on a check or if they're just waiting on the weather, just kind of get an update from them. I can contact my individual Centerpoint and see if they have anything. Doug?
That would be.
Yeah, I can do that.
Explain to them our concern because of the
Yeah,
liability
and they
issue.
are very aware of our concern, and they're aware that we want to do construction there. So they expressed to me that they would rather have it done sooner rather than later, when I talked to them earlier in December, which makes me think they're waiting on something, but I have not talked to them since then.
Even if it would necessitate a temporary measure on their part, the owner's part, he talked about possibly putting an LP tank at one time. If they have to wait for frost to come out, that really puts us in a bind. So if you
Correct.
can maybe express to them that we would rather see that shut off now and why we
And
need to shut off
I
now.
will do everything in my power. I know it's on our wall, but it seems like everybody's argument in this state is that I don't want to say they don't care, but they don't seem too concerned that it's on our wall. Let's put it that way. So I will definitely express them as much as I possibly can. If we have to get Domain involved, maybe we get Domain involved to try to force their hand a little bit, to try to speed up the process, because it definitely shouldn't have been on our wall to begin with, and it should be resolved, I personally feel, well before spring, that's for sure. So,
That sounds like a good plan.
yep, okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So I guess that's really all I had. I guess just to give it a little update on any funds that we do subtract out the costs associated to those properties. So we'll be subtracting off $7,000 to $10,000 off of the 43 before we distribute it out to the cities.
No.
Yep. So yeah, we don't keep everything. We distribute it out just as the normal tax rates after we recoup all of our costs that we had associated to them. Yep. So.
So then the school district and the city and the county get their share of that, what they would have gotten through their levy process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, everybody gets their normal tax rate breakdown. Yep.
Just curious, any movement on collecting from Travis for what was removed from the school?
I have not had a conversation with him briefly. I know he wanted me to reach out to him because he thinks that I have to give him a tour. I've already invoiced him. He argued the invoice total. So really the next battle to me would bring it to Domain and move forward with a lawsuit if that's what you guys so choose. I gave him a fair number. He disagreed with said number, and he does not feel that that's worth that, even though I know for a fact that things were taken out of there that should not have been taken out of there to begin with. So that's where we're at. We're kind of stuck right now. It's up to the board to determine if they feel that it's worth spending the money on a lawsuit for the amount of money that was taken out of there.
We collected anything from him?
I've not been able to collect anything because he argued the invoice total.
Yeah. I certainly think it'd be worth a visit with our county attorney, Domain, Sandy, and get an opinion from him.
Yeah, I can if you want. Yep. So, yeah, I'll reach out to Domain and see what we can go through from there. I mean,
It might be difficult going forward to get where you want to go with this because of other.
it's
going on
if
here.
we only want to get a couple $100 out of there, we can get a couple $100 out of there. I mean, that's fine.
We had agreement to get some money out of it,
Yeah.
and we haven't received anything.
Yep, no, I completely agree. So, I mean, I can definitely bring that forward to Domain and see if he can push him anyway to try to get something out of it, so.
Opinion from him, whether it be small claims or mechanics lien or whatever it is, because he does have a business involved in it, and he's got assets there yet as well,
Correct.
too, so.
Yep. I'll reach out to Domain for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
I was just curious on which these properties was Bauman Hall and what did it sell for?
Bauman Hall, it was 17,200,0240. It was sold for $10,100 to Reclaim Community.
Oh, they, okay.
Yep. So they were able to purchase that one. So
Certainly wish that group well, and it'd be great if they could restore that. That would
correct.
be
I know
wonderful, so.
they said they have some funds lined up. So hopefully they're able to do something with it. So, all right.
Thank you for your diligence.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Okay. We're running a little bit early, but the next thing on the schedule is with Kevin Zalstra from Edgerton. You would like to address us about some animal concerns? Welcome.
Thank you. Sheriff reports.
Kevin, is this just one copy? Or is there multiple copies for each commissioner? Is this just one?
That's one.
The whole,
That's the whole stack.
okay. How far does this
Good
go
morning.
back to?
Morning, Kevin.
A couple things that triggered me to come here this morning. Recently in the Pipestone County paper, Edgerton seeks county help on speed concerns, Pipestone Star, December 7th. Claimant asked if the county could install a four-way stop somewhere along County Highway 9 within the city to force drivers to slow down, and said he feared that there would be an accident near the school at some point if measures weren't taken. Second thing that triggered this, on Facebook, Melissa Van Dyke, December 18th, posted an update that horses were on 140th Avenue. That's the Hatfield Tar Road. Melissa Van Dyke called her boss. Todd Van Dyke talked to her boss. 2 days later, Carly Brockberg hits a horse near Todd and Melissa Van Dyke's residence. Severe impact with a horse. The car was totaled. A horse hit the car, went into the windshield. She was okay, fortunately. I don't have pictures of the accident, but it was a significant collision. Common law, a landowner need not fence his or her land against the livestock of another, but the livestock owner is required to restrain his or her livestock from entering a neighbor's land. This has been an issue for quite a while in the neighborhood. We've had discussions with the sheriff's department. We've had discussions with Domain Sandy on what we could do, and potentially there's things we could do. There are Minnesota statutes in place, 344, 346, 561. Fence law describes equal shares where adjacent property owners have to fix or put in place half of the fence, the right half, so to speak. Problem there is neither Herm Boss nor his adjacent neighbors want to build and pay for a fence. Alan Vanderluck and Reg Fye each own half a mile of adjacent property with Herm Boss. My family shares half a mile of adjacent property with Herm Boss. My father and I have maintained the entire half mile since the purchase of the farm in the early 1980s. There's the limited scope aspect of the fence law. The obligations under the fence law only apply to fences built on the boundary lines between properties. Therefore, this law does not, for instance, require an owner to build a fence along a public road that is located on the boundary line when the owner on the other side of the road desires the land to be fenced. Herm Boss has 3/4 of a fence with 2 driveways along 41st Street. There is the town option. The fence statute provides an option for towns to adopt its own fence law policy. This hasn't taken place. Alan Vanderluck and Daryl Hannenberg own property that is adjacent or across the road from Herm Boss, and both serve on the Osborne Township. It appears to me, and this is just my opinion, I'm not stating a fact, but they don't want to cause hardship on Herm Boss, but are willing to accept the known hazard of his livestock being on public roads. And I feel that the township has an obligation to do something. We've dealt with this for quite a while. This has been a pattern of behavior. One of my earliest childhood memories is my dad bought a tractor in 1976. It had bad brakes. My dad hit the barn chasing one of Herm's bulls across the yard, and that hole is still in the wall of the barn. There is a pattern to this. We see horses get hungry in the winter, so they start to move more. We start to plant crops in the spring. We end up involving the sheriff to keep the horses out of our crops. A little bit of work gets done, and then the cycle continues through the fall and winter again. So we're seeing that again. Another perception, Herm has built an 80 by 200 foot riding arena, 80 foot by 80 foot stable. He buys feed for 50 to 70 horses. There's money being spent on the horses, but there's not money being spent to keep the horses on his own property. A couple things that come to mind here a little bit. Recently, there was a regenerative farming soil health agronomy update, November 30th at the Hiawatha Lodge. There's some things happening in agriculture involving soil health. They base it on 5 principles: keeping the ground covered, minimizing soil disturbance, increasing crop diversity, keeping living roots in the soil. And the 5th one, which I think is applicable to this, is integrating livestock. So what you're going to potentially see is more farmers putting livestock on cropland and grazing crops. It's very good for the soil. Grain prices aren't very good. Improving soil health can help the economy of a farm. I'm doing it myself. I have 30 head of stock cows with 30 head of calves behind poly wire. That's something you think about all the time, having cattle out and about. My cattle do get out. I do get calls from neighbors. We figure out what happened and we fix the problem. This hasn't been the case with Herm Boss for all this time. So thinking about this over the years and offering some solutions or potential ideas for solutions, encourage the adjacent landowners to step up. My dad and I have done it. Potentially the county could ask or offer a tax credit as an incentive to those adjacent landowners. If they build a fence, offer them some tax credit on their property. I think about the environmental quality improvement program. If grazing livestock is significant, maybe that's a incentive or a element of that program. I would suggest encouraging the township to adopt a fence law. I kind of feel like they're elected and placed in a position of governing, and they need to do this. So we have a risk here that's not being addressed. Another solution or idea is expand the feedlot ordinance to address animal welfare and public safety. You know, the feedlot ordinance pretty much deals with the environmental concerns of livestock, but maybe that could be expanded to deal with animal welfare. You hear about dogs being taken from dog owners where the kennels are in poor condition. I don't know if looking at animal welfare in this particular case is a means of getting rid of some of the horses, but that's a thought. Another thought is creating a grazing ordinance. This goes along with the soil health concept and being somewhat proactive in terms of looking at what farmers are going to do. Encourage neighbors to call owners when cattle are out. Encourage neighbors to call sheriff department if cattle are out frequently. Issue fence repair tickets, just like you'd issue a repair ticket on an automobile. Escalate building a fence or the loss of the livestock ownership at some point in that type of ordinance. That's really all I have. If there's any questions, I'd like to continue the discussion.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward, and we realize there's a problem here. Obviously, our focus is what authority do we have to make a correction here. So I would look to our staff to see if they've got any input or ideas what can be done. Fellow commissioners, you got any ideas?
Well, I think I live over there, and I actually have been a neighbor to Kevin for 30 years when I lived out in the country, and I'm well aware of the problem. We've talked about it many times, and I've talked with Red Farm many times and other neighbors, but nobody knows quite what to do with Herm.
He's,
It's a difficult situation to get him to understand.
yeah, it's not part of his consciousness to keep his livestock off the road.
That are directly a result of his habits and his
Right.
place there. Yeah, animal welfare is an issue there. I think some of those animals aren't fed and stuff, and they wander away for food. And they go to Darrell Hannenberg all the time and eat his hay.
I have lots of stories.
It's all over the place, so nobody knows quite how to get a handle on it and get it.
Yeah, and we've talked to Domain, and there's been citations issued numerous times. There's nothing he can really enforce, and that's kind of what I'm pointing out here is the fence law doesn't address a Herm Boss type. I think there's such a gap between what I would consider the average Pipestone livestock owner and Herm Boss that we can draw a line somewhere in between this gap with an ordinance.
A little bit of action by the township could help too. I don't know what the county can do. I'm sure we'd be willing to do. Mike's no doubt knows about Herm and his other vehicles and his other issues too. And he's no doubt been on Herm's yard. I'm sure the deputies know all about it as well, but nobody knows quite how to.
So maybe this group needs to pressure the township.
Aren't there state statutes about not feeding animals and whatnot that come into play here, or?
I don't know who.
As far as animal welfare, but we're not talking about lack of feeding, we're talking about lack
I
of.
mean, if they're
there
not
could
being
be.
fed to the point they're going to the neighbors to look for food, maybe there is a issue.
Well, he's fortunate that Darrell Hannenberg lives across the street because he's been the most understanding, patient person I know.
Very nice, too nice. And that's kind of my point is, Darrell's in a position where he wants to maintain a good relationship as a neighbor, but he's also an elected official that I feel has a responsibility to protect the public from horses being on the road. So, there's no short-term solution here, but I think the township has the ability to write a specific ordinance on this issue.
Would the county be involved with enforcing that ordinance, or who would enforce?
Yeah, law enforcement turns into a law enforcement issue. I think Mike would answer that.
Mike, have you got any insight to add to this discussion, if you care to come forward at all and kind of give us a little bit of background? And again, yes, we certainly empathize. We all know that this has been an ongoing problem. We also all know that in a rural area, you do have livestock that occasionally gets out, but there again, and your point is very well taken, between occasionally getting out and habitually getting out, two different things, so.
So with this particular issue that Kevin brings to the board, there is a specific problem that exists, and we have dealt with it from the complaints, whether they've come from Kevin, relatively close neighbors, even people who just have drove through and made complaints. We've dealt with the animals being out of their respective area they're supposed to be in. We've dealt with the complaints on the animals not being properly, the nutrition not being proper. We've went and we've been dealt with those complaints. We've dealt with the traffic concerns as well, which they seem like separate issues, but they kind of go hand in hand because it is a unique situation. We've wrote tickets. What we felt, or what the sheriff's office has felt, an approach could happen for criminal enforcement. The county attorney's office has reviewed those reports and says that the statutes that we've enforced are not enforceable or applicable in this situation. So that in order to discuss that further, really Domain should be here to explain his opinion. And we've also asked the county attorney for advice on where to proceed from here. We've Domain has obviously, told us that there's really not much else we can enforce for the animals being large. It's more of a civil issue between land owners and people who have the crops there. It doesn't mean we agree with that as the sheriff's office, but we use the tools we have in front of us to use enforcement. What Kevin brings up for points of interest are spot on. As a neighbor, I can imagine the frustrations. As law enforcement, we have some of those same frustrations. The sheriff wanted to extend the fact that we support what Kevin's saying. We don't know what that solution is. We're not lawmakers. We don't make ordinances for the townships or the county. That's your guys's or a board's decision to make at the advice of the county attorney's office, and we'll use the tools that we have in front of us. But we have responded to every single call we have received. We do today, even though we know what we probably can do for enforcement. We've made contact with Herm on those complaints, so he knows we have them. We strongly advise him to get them taken care of for the unfortunate situation that has happened lately, most recently, which brings Kevin, with this vehicle crash. That's obviously a concern. There again, that was investigated by our office. There's a full report there. The sheriff talked to the owner of the vehicle and the driver of the vehicle, has disclosed anything we have if they want to move forward with any civil litigation. I feel we've done what we can do with the tools we have at this point.
Has Herm acknowledged that he owns the horse, or can they just say, hey, it's just a horse? Because there's no tattoos or registration on a horse. I mean, if he...
The report documents the fact that it is
his horse.
a horse that is taken care of by
He
Herm
would be
Bosch.
liable for some of the damage to the car, would he not?
Typically, and I'm not an insurance person or an agent, but typically the insurance company that he may have for his civil liability coverage, that's the stuff we collect as part of the investigation, if there is coverage that exists.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just simply collect the owner's information, because there's, outside of that, it's a civil issue, and it's
So
not for
the
law enforcement.
victim of the crash could go back and sue him or
Civilly.
take legal action against him or his insurance company.
There again, I'm not an attorney, but
Right,
that's
yeah.
my understanding, and I think any advisement on what the opinion is of the county attorney's office probably needs to come from Domain, obviously directly, so.
Here's the paragraph that I think the township needs to look at. The fence statutes provides an option for towns to adapt its own fence law policy. Under Minnesota statute 344.20, 8 or more landowners in a town may petition the town board for a vote on a partition fence policy. Upon a petition, the board may draft its own policy and procedures, including enforcement procedures for dealing with partition fences. Any such policy must be approved by a vote of the electors at an annual or special town meeting. If authorized and adopted, the local policy controls over the statutory fence law. However, the fence law still applies to fence disputes on the land between towns. Town boards must be extremely careful in choosing to exercise this option. Whatever the board adopts will become the law of the town. As law, it is not sufficiently clear or applied in a fair and consistent manner, it would cause more problems than would otherwise been experienced under the statutory fence law. And I feel that's the only choice the township has. Like I said, there's such a gap between the typical livestock owner and Herm Boss that we can draw a line somewhere in between and enforce something.
That would probably be a good place to start, is try to get them involved and try to move that forward. If you explain that to them, that's a tool they could use. I'm sure the sheriff and his deputies don't like going out there chasing cattle either, and horses and stuff, and running around. And I mean, there's
Well, and I will say we deal with that. I mean, that's part of being in rural America.
yeah, it is.
You have
But when
livestock,
it's
they
an
will at times get out.
ongoing thing. It just goes on forever,
And we deal with that frequently throughout the county, but this is a particular area that's got a lot more concern than most. There's no question about that.
We talk about how unfortunate it was that this young girl was hurt. If you think about worst case scenario, okay, we talk about his liability for the car damage, and very, very grateful that she wasn't hurt. Had she not been so fortunate, had she been killed, then again, just let your imagination run as far as what the legal ramifications of that would be. He certainly would be more than just fiscally liable. There might also be some criminal liability for him knowingly presenting hazard out there. So again, you talk about his insurance. I wonder if that's really the only lever at this point that would get some. You have to have some way of motivating somebody.
If he even has it.
If he even has insurance.
Speculating
Yeah.
that there is.
Speculating, I'm
is
just
that, we
showing,
don't
I'm just
even
saying
know.
that's something we get in our investigation if it's
Right.
presented to us. But if they don't have it, they're not by any legal means criminal-wise obligated to have that.
Right.
With vehicles, the state requires you to have some form of liability insurance, but I don't know if just being a farmer or a landowner that you're required to have that. I don't know that. I don't know if there's a requirement for liability if your stock cows get out or whatever it might be,
We always look at it from the standpoint of law enforcement is, as Kevin moves forward in this venture of figuring out what could be an option and the government entities to filter through, you got to look at the practicality of if you take your time to make this tool available to law enforcement, have we done it right? In township ordinances, I don't know if the county attorney's office works as a prosecutor in a township ordinance violation. I know if the county had an ordinance that they violated, and we're not at, sheriff's office isn't asking for that, but just something to food for thought in moving forward. And we've discussed this with Kevin too. You know, the sheriff has on his concerns, and we share the same concerns. There's no question about it. But as Kevin is related to, we've all kind of exhausted everything we can do. We still want people to call us. That's important, and we will still respond like we would with anything.
Right.
So
They were out last night. The road grader went through yesterday morning, late yesterday afternoon. There's people driving around looking for horses. There's horse tracks and horsemen around the road near Todd Van Dyke's residence this morning, so.
They're going half a mile and then a mile south just to look, they're looking for food probably or something.
To move forward on this then, would it be appropriate for us to ask Domain to come and visit with us? And certainly, Kevin, you'd be welcome to come back to that meeting as well too and kind of see what some of our options are. Is that a way that we can at least, again, move this forward?
It's like Donald Trump building a wall.
Well, I totally understand and I agree with what you're trying to do here, but I also understand, know the person that's involved, the other person that's involved, and it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, his other family members recognize the issue. Herm is still physically healthy, but his mental capacity may be somewhat limited. He doesn't recognize the risk or the endangerment to other people that this presents. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for coming forward, Kevin.
Thanks, Mike.
Steve, if you would then contact Domain and see if we can set up a time for him to come to one of our next meetings so we'll put it on the agenda and then see what we can do to move forward with this. I see that Renee is here now as well too. We've added you to the agenda. Renee, if you'd care to come forward, our VSO officer, you got a presentation for us?
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
So after the article came out in the paper about the homeless veteran that I've assisted, I've had people come in and contact me about possible donations. And I've talked to Steve a little bit about it and thought that it would be beneficial to come to you guys with a proposed plan on how I can handle it if it's approved. I told this individual who came up and asked that I probably wouldn't be able to receive any cash donations. I don't want to deal with anything of that nature. I said a gift card donation would probably be the best way to go about it because we can track it and it's not just money flying around. So I've come up with this procedure to receive the donation. Again, no cash, just gift cards. In the packet, there's a computer log example. I've worked with other CVSOs on how they do this. And this is an example that was given to me from Nicollet County. And the second page, or third page, is the log I have created on my computer. And then Nicollet County also gave me his log for the recipient of the gift card. And so I also plan on using a receipt book and a lockbox. Lockbox to keep the gift cards in so they're secure, and the receipt book as a way to take a copy of the gift card, attach it to the receipt book so that shows which gift card that person got. and then also a copy to go in the binder with the log 2. So that way there's no question as to where this gift card went. I plan on maintaining the privacy of my veterans still in this endeavor. I would be using their file number or the last 4 of their social security number as a way to identify this is who received this gift card without saying so-and-so is having a hardship, they need this gift card. And then they will need to sign upon receiving.
I certainly appreciate your willingness to start something like this. I think it's something that it's not on the scale that Nicollet County would be, but you no doubt have some people here that you could benefit from this a little bit. Do you have time in your day to take care of all this stuff? It's another little project on your...
For my veterans, I will do whatever it takes, so, absolutely.
That.
The individuals that have come forward want to make donations, do they have a specific donor in mind, or is it just a general donation for anybody that might be in need? How is that normally approached to you?
It was approached to me as in, this person had said, hey, I saw your article in the paper, I thought it was a really great thing that you did, I want to donate and help. And when I was talking to Nicollet County about this, he also suggested maybe starting a committee or something of that nature. And while I'm not opposed to that, I feel like this would be the best approach, because then it allows me to make the decision on whether or not this veteran is truly in a hardship or not. It was also thought about bringing the donations to other organizations in the community, such as the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program, things like that. And those organizations are fabulous and have been a tool for me to use. I worry that if there's too many people that get involved, these veterans aren't going to get the help that they need because of helping them previously, or, personal, I don't think they're struggling that bad sort of thing, that I want to keep it kind of close.
When you think if somebody wanted to donate to a specific veteran, they should just take care of that themselves, not involve you in a whole
They'll
nother
do it
process.
directly.
I
This would
agree,
be kind of
yes.
like I would just call it not a food bank, but you'd be kind of the banker, and you would determine who, somebody comes in that's needy, you wouldn't go out looking for them, but you would, if they
Right.
know you're available and donors know you're willing to do this, you might be able to gather in some donations and stuff like that. So.
Yes, if they want help a specific
How big,
veteran.
if it
then-
gets to be a huge thing you can't manage, then you might have to get some people, a couple volunteers to help you, or some people, a little group of advisors or something, but I don't think you want to do that right away, personally, but it's up to
No.
you. But
I don't think that we're going to have a huge influx of gift cards. I mean, we're a small community and,
gift cards are nicer than cash.
yep. And then we can regulate where that spending is going too. If they have a $50 Coburn's gift card,
People can use cash to buy cigarettes or beer or whatever. This isn't intended for that, I don't think. It's more
No.
for things
the
that-
gas card would be for gas for them to get to work so they can maintain their employment and things like that. The grocery gift card would be intended for groceries. However, I won't be on the other side of the checkout when they make this purchase, so this is on good faith that the veteran's going to use it appropriately.
If it's a grocery store, or like you say, a Casey's or something, then chances are that you're gonna buy some food or something, or some gas or whatever, but yeah. Just follow them around and police the whole thing, so.
No.
Chairman, if I may?
Yes, please.
When Renee contacted me about this, I contacted Auditor Tyler Reich on this as well, to make sure that we're going to be in compliance with any audit requirements, which she said, as long as we have a full log of where it's, the income, where it's going, we're fine. And then we also have it put in the minutes that we've done this too, so they'll be able to look at it. So it would be an auditable item that when I Bailey comes in next year, they can take a look at that as well. So we just want to make sure we're following the rules. Tyler said we're okay if we do a log, and Renee's got this set up. Reading through this, sounds like a very well thought out procedure here, and that would take care of it.
Do we need a motion to
We would like a motion
That
to
Renee
approve
can
this.
proceed with it.
Yep, motion to approve the,
I'd make a motion to approve it, and she, at her discretion and as her time permits to
I would second.
forward.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve this proposed donation procedure. Okay. One of the concerns I would have, Renee, is the possible criticism that you could possibly be opening yourself up to in distributions. You could have people say, well, she's biased towards me or so forth. So do you know how could you manage that?
I have concerns about that too. At the end of the day, I just hope that I can make good judgments, take the veteran for face value, looking at their means. I just hope that I can make good judgment. I don't have a backup plan if this ends up blowing up in my face.
Looking at worst case scenarios.
Yep.
We also, there are some other charitable organizations in the community already, Food Shelf, the Pastorals Association Group, Health and Human Services. But I can also see that some of that is difficult too when you're dealing with such a specific group of people that are in need, the veterans and specifically homeless veterans or just veterans in general, veterans of need?
Veterans of need. Primarily the focus would be homeless veterans. But if there's a veteran in need, I want to be able to help them too. And a lot of the organizations that I seem to come across, they want income information. They need the paper trail and things like that. And I have found that it's very difficult for a middle-class veteran who's going through a hardship because something happened, and I can't provide them any help because on paper they make too much money. And so I want to be able to bridge the gap there, that, this isn't a free-for-all, we're not giving out gift cards like candy, but if you need something, I want to be able to try and give that to you, within reason, of course.
Yeah. And again, all of your funding is going to be coming from the public at large. It won't be part of the levy at all. It won't be county, won't have any fiscal contributions to it.
No, it will be strictly donations from our community.
Anybody else, any questions or concerns?
It would seem like if you're protecting the identity of those getting it, there wouldn't really be much of a comparison. I don't know that you'd run a lot of risk of, one saying that so-and-so's getting more than I am when you don't even know who those
Right.
people are.
This isn't going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything
Right.
either. We're talking about,
Right.
The only way I could see the community knowing about what veteran gets assistance from me is if the veteran says so themselves.
All right.
you would be
That's
keeping
up to
that
them.
in your file, so.
And then do you have any intention then of actually soliciting donations to this, or just as word gets out that you're working as a conduit to help homeless veterans? How will people be aware of this?
I've considered putting it out there that we are accepting donations to help homeless veterans. I certainly don't want it to be where I'm constantly asking for assistance from the community to help with this. This is more just
It's
if
kind of a
somebody wants to
voluntary
help.
donation program that
Yep.
You don't have to go out and twist their arm to get $10 and waste your time
Right.
running around town. So I would just leave it at that and go forward and see where it goes.
And it's very possible that as time goes by, there might be more demand than what you've got funds for. You might not be able to meet all the demands.
Typically, welfare programs do increase in necessity just because the more you give people, the more they want. Or the less they provide for themselves. So that's just, but I don't think that's Renee's goal here. But
I don't think so either.
Okay. Well, I certainly applaud your compassion and your desire, your drive to help our veterans, obviously. So, anybody else, any further questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion to adopt this procedure for donations? Aye. And opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay. Then next, then, we've got the other item that you added, Steve. You've got a presentation then on Southwest Health and Human Services and also their IT.
Excuse me. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. I've got before you is the 2019 office lease agreement and also the 2019 information technology services contract. I contacted Director Wilms on this last week. She fired it back on the 31st and said there are no changes to the coming year. So I updated the dates, and take a look on page 2 of the lease agreement. There are no changes to the lease agreement. Basic rent is $38,000. And then they're paying off the $51,898 remodeling that was done in 2015, and also $20,000 for utilities maintenance. So the total is $68,379.60 for 12 months, and they're billed quarterly for that at $17,094.90 through the end of 19, and this is an annual. And then the information technology services contract is the same as it was last year. Item number 4 is compensation on the first page of that. And for the IT services, they're going to pay $5,000 for IT services and $37.50 for connectivity services for $87.50, payable in the same method as we're collecting the lease for. They pay that quarterly. So when I invoice them, they get a line item for lease and a line item for information technology services. There was some concern earlier that they would be canceling the IT services portion of it, which Bill is helping with. There was no change to this, so this is in force for the following year.
Yeah.
So,
Les, you puzzled by this?
Different from what we talked about at the last meeting.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, it was like, well, we won't need the IT support from Bill Folger. Obviously, they still have the contract for the connectivity, but this has changed.
Yeah. Well, I suppose with Kerry not being there anymore, there was a change.
And maybe they've changed their approach and philosophy since the last meeting too, as far as backfilling that position, because there was a question about whether or not it was needed, so.
Yeah, the executive committee had the decision on that, and they may have made their decision.
Right.
The county's costs with IT and protecting and firewalls and stuff like that and protecting information are going up all the time. I certainly think they shouldn't be going down with their
no, it's
support there, but is our costs going up with our new programs and stuff that we
I don't
put
think
in?
we do anything with the data or security part.
No, and
Provide the
Okay, that's all
fiber.
on them. The security of it is all on them.
right. But
And they have their own security.
But this covers Bill's labor if they come to Bill for some
need
support,
something out
either
there.
whether it be hardware or some soft, probably more hardware than software, I would think, with Bill.
When they have a problem, he can run up, they're cheaper, than they can send somebody up.
Yeah, so, and I'm glad that they're looking to continue that.
Yeah.
As far as the lease agreement, then this is all completely separate from our discussion about any other remodeling out there. This is what we've got
completely
existing
separate.
now. So if
This
that,
has nothing to do with our discussions on future remodeling plans. This is what's in effect right now.
right. And this is an annual renewal, so this is
Yes.
one of our routine maintenance
Take
things
us,
that we need to do.
this will
so.
take us through the end of 2019, and then I'll come back again, and we'll do it again for next year.
Well,
See what changes.
hopefully this fall, when we get into budget, we can make some changes in the compensation.
In fact, I don't think that our agreement would not prohibit us from making a change before the end of the year.
We have to do it before the budget, or in the budget process.
Right.
Because that question's been raised to Health and Human Services before, as far as the joint powers with 6 different entities, of how has that actually been, that formula been put together. So again, we're renewing our existing contract, not saying that can't be adjusted if Southwest Health and Human Services Finance Group comes back and says this is what the recommendations are, if indeed they do recommend any changes in that compensation.
I'd move for approval.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded to approve both contracts, the lease and also the technologies. Okay, any further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. All right, did you have any other business that you'd like to bring forward, Steve?
I don't,
Does Kathy
check
have a
with, we should go
personnel?
check with Kathy, see if she has any personnel. I'd recommend, why don't we take a 5-minute?
I think it sounds good. It is 10:04. We'll take about a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Yeah. Well, Kevin, I do appreciate you coming forward with it.
All right.
Okay. It is 10:20. We are reconvened then from our recess. Kathy Feste did not have a specific report for us, so not able to join us. So as far as any other personnel business, I think we're in good shape there. I believe what we'll do at this point then is we'll move on to our committee reports. Okay. Would you care to start, Luke?
Since we already covered through AMC last time, we don't have that much, but on the 12th, One Watershed, One Plan for the Missouri River, we approved the final sections, the full draft plan, and we sent everything out for the 60-day public comment period, and I believe you all got a handout on that in your packet. On the 13th, Pipestone Forward met at the monument. They talked about new exhibits coming late in 2019 and about the ongoing quarrying issue, which they're still not clear on what direction that's going, but we'll have to just keep an eye on it, I guess. At the Soil and Water later that day, a couple of retirements. Jerry Burton from NRCS is retiring, as is Arvin Pater from Soil and Water District. And they approved the 2019 budget. On the 18th, the hospital board met. And on the 19th, the Highway 23 Coalition met. They're trying to focus on projects likely to be funded this session. They had 5 smaller safety projects picked out and possibly 2 preferred route studies, which basically if they're going to, say, mill and overlay or do something to a highway, they want to make sure that it's in the right place. So if you want to, in the future, have it 4-lane, that they don't have to relocate it. So there's some preferred route study they have to do to make sure that is done. And so I mentioned the Granite Falls to Cottonwood, which they're going to be redoing in concrete in 2020, and suggested that should be one of those that they do then, so that they make sure it's in the right place. And same way, they had a stretch on the other side of St. Cloud that we were to look at. And also, there is a business position open on that Highway 23 Coalition. If anyone knows somebody that's interested in transportation issues and wants to attend their meetings, I sure would like to forward somebody's name from this area rather than Marshall or somewhere else. And that's about all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Luke. Chris?
At the AMC annual conference on December 3rd and 4th, I had already previously reported on that. Monday, December 10th, at a PCMC executive committee meeting. And then that evening, we also had Truth and Taxation. Wednesday, December 12th, we had Southwestern Mental Health and Laverne, along with Commissioner Nath. The financial report wasn't as good as previous year. They're actually taking their first loss in 12 years, and anticipating about $100,000 loss. And big reason for that was their Unity House in Worthington, which caused about 26% loss for them this year, just from not being understaffed and not keeping all the beds full.
It's surprising what a difference it makes when you can't keep it fully staffed. It cuts your numbers so bad and doesn't pencil out.
But on the other side of the $100,000 loss, they're going to have they'll save about $100,000 a year by switching their health insurance to PEEP, and actually it's a 17.64% decrease for them. So that's pretty significant. Kurt Holman did show up about an hour late for the Vera update and talked about Avera received a $7.8 million grant to staff psychiatrists 24/7 through the E-emergency program, and their goal is to get these cameras put into squad cars, so then the law enforcement doesn't have to take people to the hospital, then get assessed for mental health, that they can assess them on the spot and not tie up the officer at the hospitals for hours at a time and try to streamline the process. So that's something we might see down the line here. But that's at least a year out or more they've figured for that. We also did Scott Johnson's evaluation. Even though There was a loss. We did decide to give him his raise appropriate with everyone else there. We can't really ding him for one bad year out of 12 years, and it was an anomaly that they didn't really see coming. So, otherwise, he had a good review. Thursday, December 13th, we met at Stacy's for in Woodstock for the Friends of the Casey Jones Trail. We met with Brad Gruselbrink about the land that he has and how we could possibly use it, and just various scenarios and what we're going to do to get through Woodstock there. So. The draft for the engineers should have been completed at the end of the week that we met, and that was for the engineering of the extension to Woodstock. The bid letting for that must be done by June, so it's probably going to be the month previous to it with the way everything's kind of running last minute there. And then there's going to be an assessment done by the DNR for the Lake Wilson Trail sometime this spring. They're going to roll part of the Pipestone Trailhead into the bid for the resurfacing too, to hopefully try to get something a little more, I don't know, defined in that area. It's just kind of open, and I brought up the concerns about trucks parking there overnight all the time, and different ways that we could try to keep trucks out of that area too. So, if there's anything else, I don't know, Dan, did you have anything else from that meeting?
I think you pretty well covered it. Had like I said, a real good discussion with Brad on that property and so forth too. And the plan still is to finish that 5 miles then in the spring, and how that deadheads then into Lake Wilson is going to be somewhat dependent on how that figures we go north or south.
Mm-hmm.
But no, had a good discussion.
Is this whole Casey Jones thing a county project that we have 2 commissioners assigned to that, or do they pay per diem on these meetings, or does the county pay for all this stuff?
County pays per diem on this, yep.
I didn't know we had an official county meeting presence necessary there, but
Yep.
maybe it's...
Have had since I started.
And as well as Murray is also on there.
Murray's there as well too.
It's a committee.
Are they gonna maintain the existing trail?
Yes, and the maintenance now is going to be coming out of the Split Rock maintenance facility instead of the Blue Mountain like they had been before.
But I mean, are they gonna actually do any, or, you know, like fill cracks or holes, or?
At this time, I don't think there was any plans,
No.
but there's been plenty of concerns brought up
We
on that.
discussed it at the meetings, so it's the same thing.
And when you mentioned
funds.
the trailhead maybe having some enhancement, is there any thought of like paving that, or?
Right, yeah, paving, and then I suggested maybe pillars around the area just to keep the trucks from backing into there.
Mhm.
Something, try to keep them out of there. There's trucks in there all the time. But,
It seems to me it's more of a Pipestone issue than a county issue, but if Pipestone, Woodstock, and these communities want to be involved in it, but...
well, then moving on Tuesday, December 18th, PCMC board meeting, and that was my last meeting for December.
Good, thank you. Bruce?
I had a plan ops meeting on the 10th. Les and I were there. We talked about a bunch of stuff at the hospital. Still some construction issues and some new construction stuff happening on the second floor. I think you're mostly aware of the leaking plumbing and this and that happening up there. The 10th, we had our truth and taxation meeting, which you were all there. 17th, we had a zoning meeting in the evening. Quite a spirited conversation about some issues, nothing the county can deal with, but we will have to probably approve the decision at our next board meeting. Kellerman was at the meeting. I think Luke's aware of him and what's going on there, but there's nothing that he can, his complaints are pretty much unwarranted as far as I can tell, but anyway, that might be something that will come up again at our next meeting. They want to do a lay-down yard or a maintenance site there. I think it's a half a mile north of his property. He's concerned about that.
Kyle will be here on the 8th for that
Okay, that's, and we
zoning commission.
asked if we could possibly have a deputy here for a little while, and that morning I did talk to the deputies about that. On the 18th, we had our budget meeting, as we were all aware of, and then on the 19th, I went to the Buffalo Ridge Drug Tax Task Force with Mike Heyman in the folder, and that was interesting. We got to meet a lot of different people and some different things there.
Is anything happening with that as far as any changes, or?
doesn't look like any changes. They need kind of a new leader. They're trying to get one of the group to become the new sergeant or the captain or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the commander.
And looks like that's their next big issue. They say that 75% of their arrests now are drug-related. They're just blossoming. There's so much of that stuff.
Right.
So I don't know if there's any answer to that other than as long as people want to take the stuff, you're going to have a hard time stopping it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Les?
Well, on the 10th of December, we had plan ops. Then on 12/12, we had Southwest Mental Health. And just to kind of highlight on some things Chris brought up with the loss on the Unity House in Worthington because not being able to staff it. And you think about it, all the stuff that's being talked about with mental health in the state, we can't staff that, and they're trying to build more facilities. Where's the staff coming from?
Is that why it's not full then? Because if you don't have the staff, obviously.
You got, for every so many people, you got to have a certain amount of staff. So.
Unless, if I remember right, they couldn't provide overnight anymore.
Right.
They'd lost their overnight people, so that was kind of a big hit there.
And that's good revenue.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing I was going to mention on that? Oh, well. Then on the 17th, I had Southwest pick in Marshall, elected officers. New chairman will be Joe Fox. Can't remember the county he's from, but it's up north. What's that?
Swift.
Yeah, you're right, Swift. Ron Anthony was the chairman, and he's stepped down because he's involved with more MCIT on the board there. He wants to step down from a few things, so. And then on the 19th, we had Southwest Mental Health, or Health and Human Services. There really wasn't a lot presented.
We did our annual review.
Yeah, annual review of Beth, and she got real good ratings for the mess she come into and where she's went with it since she took over. Well, it took her, 6 months to figure things out a little. But hopefully we're on the right track. Things are looking good. Can't think of too much else that happened there. There was a couple presentations, but
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier too, the discussion about the
IT.
IT, so this is opposite of what, so something
Yeah,
must
I
have
got to
changed
correct
after our
myself. It
meeting.
wasn't, if I remember right, it wasn't turn over to the executive board. It was more the financial committee.
Right, because it was presented to us that they have had as many as 5 people in their IT department.
Yeah.
And they didn't backfill the one position, so now we've got a 4th person that has tendered their resignation, so we're talking about backfilling that 4th position. That's where the discussion came in at.
Yeah. So that's why they must decide to reinstate the local.
We did backfill, wasn't it, 3 other positions though?
Yeah.
Not
Two,
the-
two.
two other positions.
2.
Case
One is still
manager.
open.
Yeah.
But they have got their number of employees, haven't they?
Yes, we're down probably about 10 or 15 employees from its high.
From the high was 255, and I think we're like, what, 241?
41, it's 242.
Right in that area, so. And then on the 27th, I attended the auction here in the Commissioner's Room on tax forfeiture property, and that was very surprising. We had one guy with a lot of money and wanted everything. So,
Oh, so he bid on multiple properties.
just every one, didn't he?
Wow.
So,
You didn't get them all, though.
no, he didn't get them all. He got one, I think.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Les. For myself, again, we talked about AMC earlier in the month. Then on the 12th, we had the Explore Southwest Minnesota that Chris already gave a good report on.
I did not attend that one. Dan.
Oh, excuse me. No, it was the Casey Jones. The Explore Southwest Minnesota, they talked about getting involved in this Hunt Minnesota program. Again, we took a vote on it, and that did fail. We're not going to have a booth at that Hunt show this year. They're working more on trying to get better website developed and get some better advertisement for that for the entire reach as well. That group has grown. It's gotten a lot of momentum here as of late, so it's really getting a good emphasis again for tourism development.
How many counties are in that now?
9.
That's up quite a bit then, wasn't it down to 5 at one point?
Yeah.
Right, Rock was out
Nine.
for a while, came back.
Yep. On the 14th, then, I had my Southwest Minnesota 18 Mental Health Consortium, and the same issues that we're dealing with Southwest Mental Health as well, too, number of beds and so forth. Apparently, many years ago, they had given a grant to Unity House down where it was a loan at the time, but it was a forgivable type loan, so we did actually go ahead and forgive that loan for that because it was part of their mission. Also, our director, as I reported here a few months ago, Kimberly Holm, had tendered her resignation because of family. They were moving up to, actually, she's going to take her other job that she'd had previously. That's changed now. Her husband's new job, he's able to work remotely, so they're not going to have to move. So we've offered her a contract, and she has tentatively agreed to take that contract to come back again. She's an independent contractor. She's not an employee, so there's some things to be worked out there yet as well, too.
It's always nice when you can do that, because you don't have to bring somebody in and
Exactly.
bring them up to speed.
Exactly. Then on the 17th, then we had our Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council annual meeting. That was actually hosted here in Pipestone at the Stone House. Had a good turnout for it. Had a good annual report. Still making progress on our building construction in Worthington. They've got it pretty well enclosed. Looking at getting that completed before the start of next fall's school year. So it's coming along nicely. On the 19th, then, we talked about our Health and Human Services meetings. Yeah, we discussed that. And the Pipestone Area Coalition, I had mentioned before that Steve Beekman had left us. He went down to Sioux City. They have offered a contract, and I believe she's accepted it. It's a young lady by the name of a local person. Well, she grew up here, Amanda Gustafson. And we'll have our meeting coming up next week. It'll be my first time to meet her. So looking forward to continuing with that. There's still 2.5 years left on that 5-year grant.
Right. I believe she accepted.
That's what I understand. She did. Yep.
Thought there was a note that come out.
Yep. And that concludes my report. Oh, with the one exception, Steve, do you want to shed any light on the generator? We talked about, did everybody know about the individual coming down from generator company on the 9th?
Yeah, a gentleman from Russ Electric will be here January 9th to inspect and check over the generator and also to infrared camera all the connections in it as well.
Yep.
And for some reason, we haven't had a contract on the switch gear for probably 5 years. I have no explanation for that. It was before Wayne was here, before obviously I was here as well. But we're now have another contract for that. It's $1,860 per year for an annual inspection. So I approved that and got that going, so this will be part of the contract. So we'll get an inspection this year and then every year going forward. So we'll find out what's going on the 9th with the switchgear.
At this point, it appears, might be preliminary or premature, but it appears as though we're not going to have to replace this whole unit like we at one time had feared. We'll get this individual down and give us an evaluation of it, and it's not as severe as what we first were led to believe, that there's a cam motor in there with the motor actuator that actually throws this lever. There's a shear pin in there, and that shear pin is what is broke. It's not anything mechanical in there as far as the actual integral structure of that. It's just that cam, so that's where it
Saves a lot
gets
of money.
Yeah.
The shear pin broke due to lack of maintenance somewhere else in the mechanism, and if they get that
adjustments,
adjusted
lubrication,
properly,
so that's where we're going with this maintenance
So
contract.
we need to get back on track on that. I mean, to me, that's a huge failure point. For $1,860 a year, we can't afford to have that piece fail on the generator system in this building. So we've got to have that. Well, the generator is checked and serviced twice a year by Cummins out of Sioux Falls, so we're taking care of that. For some reason, we're not taking care of our switch gear, which is obviously your weak point. If something's going to go bad, we've got to have that going. And for whatever reason, the shear bolts that are in there are not the original shear bolts that were in their beginning. So somewhere along the line, different bolts were installed by other maintenance staff, and so we're not even sure which ones are supposed to be in there. So another reason.
in there or something that didn't even belong in there.
If we got the wrong bolts in there, it'd be like putting a grade 5 bolt in your snow blower and then wrecking your snow blower when it's supposed to shear and it doesn't shear. So we don't want to create a problem and cause a mechanical problem due to a failure here too, so.
So having this factory rep down here in the 9th, we're going to look at a much clearer picture at that point
Yep.
where we stand. But it does look much brighter than we did a month ago when he
Yeah,
was.
so that's, hopefully it'll save us $50-some thousand replacing switch gear that we don't have to do, so. We're moving in the right direction.
Kinda sounds like
$1,800 look cheap.
It is, yeah,
Human
it's,
Services Building's gonna move forward, just looking at some windows at this point, and
haven't had a chance to talk to Stacy since
I
then.
think that was the next move there, rather than go forward with a big remodeling plan.
Yep, we're gonna work with the windows. Wayne's reached out to Southwest Glass to come down and give a quote to replace the windows in the front at this time.
Okay, very good.
So that's a good thing.
Any other committee reports or updates? Then the last thing we got then is just announcing our upcoming meetings. On the 8th, we got an organizational meeting here.
Right.
And then on February 13th and 14th will be the AMC Legislative Conference up in St. Paul.
And everyone is registered that's let me know they're going, so, and Chris and Dan and myself are going at this time. You guys aren't going, correct? Bruce, you said no already. Les, I think you said no as well, right?
We're having our Christmas then,
Okay.
that weekend.
Yeah, good representation there, so.
Bruce just made the motion to adjourn. Is there a second to Bruce's motion?
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, all in favor, aye. Opposed, the same. Thank you, gentlemen. 10:40.
It's self-destruct mode then.
It was Joan pretty much